Today's verses come out of Mark. It's Mark 16 through 20, and the section is titled Jesus Calls His First Disciples. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him.
Hello friends, and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a disciple of Christ. So disciple is a word that many of us are very familiar with, right? Jesus had 12 disciples, and here's the first question. Can you guys name those 12 disciples? Go ahead and take a minute and see if you can list all of the 12 disciples right now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read through the list of Jesus' 12 disciples, and you can see how many you got right. So we have Bartholomew and James, Andrew, Judas, Peter, John, Thomas, James, another James, Philip, Matthew, Jude, and Simon. And if you guys are familiar with more of like the New Testament stories, some of these disciples are talked a lot more than other ones, like Peter, Thomas, Judas. Those are names that people are pretty familiar with. And there's some other ones, maybe like Bartholomew or Jude or Simon, that you don't see them pop up in stories as much, right? But no matter how much they were mentioned in Jesus's ministry, these guys all left everything that they knew, everything that they owned, and followed Jesus. If you guys remember back to the first story of Jesus when he's going out and collecting these men for his ministry, he sees some of them fishing, and he goes, drop your fishing nets and come follow me. And that's exactly what they do, right? They leave their families, they leave their homes, their jobs, and they leave all of that to follow Jesus. So let's talk about hobbies for a little bit. What are some things that you guys like to do? How about reading, playing outside, maybe playing a sport? There'll be some pictures that'll show up on the screen in a little bit that show some of my hobbies. So one of my biggest hobbies is animals. I've always loved animals for as long as I can remember. I worked on a farm for 6 years, so I got to be around cows and goats and chickens and dogs and cats, and oh man, I just had a blast. Another hobby that I've also really enjoyed was reading. I loved to read. My parents always got a little bit annoyed by it because if I was in the middle of a really good book, I wouldn't respond. They would call my name, and they would hear nothing. Actually, in second grade, I liked reading so much that when I was supposed to be paying attention to my teachers, I would slip books underneath my table and I would start reading them. And so for the rest of the year, I was not allowed to have a single book at my desk because my teachers knew that I was going to be reading during math lessons and history and science and all that stuff. And I still like it today. Let's see, another hobby that I have, if I can remember my pictures on my slideshow. Ooh, ice cream. So one of my favorite things to eat is ice cream. So the picture that you guys see right now, there's kind of looks like a glob of ice cream. There's some pretzels, some brownies. I think there's some cookies in there. And this is a picture that was taken when I was in Pennsylvania visiting my family. It was like National Ice Cream or Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. And my grandma had invited me over and we made this masterful piece of an ice cream sundae. And so that's what that picture is. And I love trying ice cream from all over places. I love going to Klein's and Smiley's and Grammy's that we have around here. So let's take all these hobbies and the hobbies that you guys enjoy and think about what would it be like if one day we felt led to go into ministry, or we heard God's voice that said, leave everything that you know, leave all your family, your school, all your hobbies, and come follow me. Do you think that would be kind of hard? Right? So a lot of you guys have sports and stuff, right? And so how would you feel if you had to leave all of that behind? It'd be kind of hard, wouldn't it? And there's stories in the New Testament as well of a guy coming to Jesus and he's saying, what do I need to get into the kingdom of heaven? And so Jesus rambles off some of the, commandments that he gave to Moses. And the guy's like, that's great, but I already do all these things. And then the last thing he says to this man, Jesus goes, leave everything and follow me. And it says in the passage that this man had great wealth. He had a beautiful family. He might have had a lot of crops and animals. And it made this man really sad when Jesus said that, because he knew of his great wealth and he didn't want to part with it. So he went back to his home feeling very, really sad. And I think a lot of us could relate to that story, right? So I love my pets. I actually have 2 bunnies. You guys will see it in the slideshow, and I'll have to use them for a lesson, which I could have brought them out today, and that would have been really, really fun to see them. So I'll have to include them in a future lesson. But oh man, that'd be so hard if I had to give my bunnies away. I, had to give up reading, not being able to have, the 50 some books that I have on my bookshelf back at my house, or, just even ice cream. What if I couldn't eat ice cream anymore? That'd be so difficult. And today many of us aren't faced with having that decision, right? We have a house, we have family, have a bunch of things to keep us entertained when we're not at school or at work. But we still are called to follow Jesus, right? And so what that can look like for us today is going back, and what we talked about previously is having quiet time, having time with God, right? And so maybe instead of reading one of my books that I'm really enjoying right now for 15 minutes, I spend those 15 minutes of free time and maybe finding a passage in the Bible to think about and to pray about and to talk to God about. Maybe instead of sitting down watching a TV show with some ice cream after I'm done with work, I could spend some time with God. I could take a walk in nature, just have some time to myself, listen to see if anything comes to me, right? Stuff like that. So taking some time out of our hobbies to follow God. And I don't know where, God's going to call each of you. And so I'm sure some of you will find yourself in ministry in the future. And I myself might be called into ministry overseas. We just never know. But that's my challenge for this week for you guys, is to think about the things that you really enjoy, your hobbies, and then think about how you can still have time for your hobbies, but also balance time with God and what it means to be a disciple of Christ in modern day right now, when we have so many different things like technology and just so many things, so many activities going on. Our world is just revolved around time and things happening at a certain time. Well, this was just a short message about being a disciple, just to kind of go off of, what it means to be called and the gifts that God has given us. I'm excited to see you guys next week for the last book of Ephesians, or at least Ephesians 4. And I hope to see many of you there. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.